We all have heard the story of Adam and Eve. It was no small secret, right? We all knew how Eden came to ruins by the very hands that were supposed to protect it. Everyone except, well, Nova. See, many know the story, but what many don't know were that Adam and Eve were not the only creatures in the garden. Many hybrid creatures, known as mythics, also resided within the garden, and for a time they all lived in peace, until that day. Yes, that one very sad day for every creature in Eden. Nova was the first ever created fox mythic. She had this sandy blonde fur with fluffy fox ears and tail to mirror it, and striking blue eyes. Nova was curled under her favorite tree in Eden as the warm sun beat down from between the clouds. The day was beautiful as usual in the garden. It was always perfect in Eden. Nova had been in her fox form, paws outstretched and in full relaxation mode. A small yawn followed by a fox yip escaped from her fox snout as she took in the garden's beautiful scenery. Another mythic fished some salmon out of the nearby river that was always lively with fresh fish of all kinds. Nova huffed and closed her eyes, allowing the sounds of the water to wash over her. Nova eventually reopened her eyes moments later, willing herself to stand up and further stretch. She shook out her sandy blonde fur, ears twitching for a moment, and that was when she felt it. Something was coming, she just didn't know what, but she felt it in her soul, and it wasn't good. The clouds in the sky began to darken. Heavy rain poured down from those dark clouds as if the sky was crying. They got light rain sometimes, but never anything like this in the garden had ever happened since she was created. Nova shifted back to her half-human, half-fox form, her white dress billowing in the winds that had picked up. Thunder crackled through the garden, shaking Nova to her core. Tears slipped from her ocean eyes and dribbled down her rose-tinted cheeks. She felt her body choking up, reacting to what felt like a great sadness ripping her apart. For the first time ever, she felt like she was losing something big, a feeling she had never once felt in her existence, and it truly was painful. Nova's long, sandy blonde hair blew with the winds as she stood there, heartbroken and crying over something she hadn't truly known what yet. Nova drew to her knees and began to pray with everything she had in her being, but was met with nothing but cold silence. Nova kneeled there in the rain, her hair soaked and clinging to her pretty face as she received no help from their maker. For the first time ever, Nova truly felt alone. Right as Nova was about to have a breakdown right there in that cold, isolating rain, she lost consciousness. Upon waking, Nova felt a pit of sadness lingering in her soul and a pain in her stomach. She was starting to feel nauseous. Nova blinked tears from her eyes. She reached up to wipe them away. Nova's eyes were trying to focus, but they kept going in and out, going from blurry to clear every few seconds. When she could finally see properly, a voice rung out to capture her already foggy attention.
It's okay, you are safe now. Welcome to heaven. You must have done some good things in your life to get here.
The voice chimed happily. Nova tilted her head, her blonde hair falling softly over her shoulders as her fox ears flicked a little.
Oh, that's interesting.
He muttered, flipping his platinum blonde hair while he flipped through a giant book. Upon further examination, Nova could see she was no longer in Eden, but in the clouds themselves, it seemed. A giant pearly white gate guarded something inside of which she didn't know nor could see. His smile faltered a little as he frantically scrolled through the book.
What was your name again?
He asked, clearly confused, which confused her as well.
My name is Nova,
she said as she stood up in the same soft white dress she had been in before she passed out in Eden.
I don't understand. I have all earthly names that arrive here in the book.
The man said, puzzled, still trying to find what she assumed was her name in this so-called book.
What is an earth?
She asked, trying to make sense of his nonsense.
Oh boy. Excuse me for a moment. I need some assistance.
He muttered. He seemingly disappeared and reappeared in seconds with two other people with him.
Hiya there!
The smaller female smiled happily at Nova, taking her hands in her own.
It's so nice to meet you. My name is Emily, and this here is Sera.
She pointed to the taller female. We just want to help you get to where you need to be. Do you remember anything? She asked softly.
Well, let's see. I was resting under my favorite tree in the garden when the skies cried and the ground shook with pain, and then everything was cold and dark.
Nova expressed the reliving of the moment seemed to cause some residing trauma as it made her eyes well up with tears again. Nova's fox ears flattened against her long blonde hair as she reminisced.
Then I was here.
The man and the two women stared at one another, their eyes widening and their mouths dropping open as they finally realized something. I've never met one. This is unheard of. I could have sworn there were none left after the fall of Eden, Sera muttered. Nova's nose twitched uncomfortably as she heard Sera's words.
Eden couldn't. It can't be gone.
Nova's voice quivered at the very thought of her home being fallen. The pit that had been in her stomach up till now finally sunk to the point where she gagged slightly on the verge of full-on vomiting.
No, not... It's not possible.
She stuttered over her own words. The three of them looked at each other with somber faces. Let's take a step back, since we're all clearly at a loss for the situation at hand. Please, come in, and we'll discuss things further, she declared. Nova, just finding out her home was gone, had no choice but to hesitantly follow the two females through the gates, her feet cautiously moving one in front of the other.
How did it happen?
Nova mustered up the courage to ask. She needed to know what caused their maker to turn on them and tear down the garden. You really don't remember, do you? Eve, she turned on Adam and left with Lucifer. Emily tried her best to break the news to Nova as kindly as possible, Nova's tail tucked between her legs, defensively.
Nonsense. Blasphemy. She would never.
Nova spoke so matter-of-factly, it almost sounded like she was arguing without meaning to, but it genuinely felt offensive to her. Emily immediately sensed the change in Nova's demeanor and spoke more carefully this time. She did, in fact. That's why Eden fell. Adam really hasn't been the same since. She accidentally let it slip.
Adam's here? Isn't the first man?
She asked, shocked that at least one person from her home made it to this strange place. Yes, but he is, well, a bit difficult. Sera expressed her frustration through rubbing her forehead.
I have so many questions.
Nova's ears perked up at the thought of Adam being here and able to help her. Emily and Sera winced a little, knowing very well how Adam was nowadays and how the situation would go down. I'm sure you do, but maybe we have you rest first. It's going to be a long road getting you adjusted to heaven, Emily insisted.
Heaven? Is this what this place is called? What is this place anyways?
Nova prodded for more information on her so-called new home. Heaven is a beautiful place where souls come if they are good in their lives. It's a safe haven and a blessing to be here. She huffed happily as if this was her favorite topic. Emily continued. This is where you're rewarded for having lived a good life, she clapped.
What about the bad souls?
Nova inquired further. Well, they go to a place called Hell, where they become demons and suffer their afterlives. It's a punishment for their wrongdoings and whatnot. Sera did her best to explain, but the look Nova gave her told her she didn't exactly like the words coming out of her mouth.
Is Father no longer forgiving? Are we supposed to be of love and light?
Sera looked more bothered by Nova's words, as if there was something unspoken hanging in the air, though one of the two didn't seem to know about. Nova, not wanting to cause bad blood from the beginning in her new home, kept quiet, waiting. Father has not been around in a long while, Nova, Sera spoke with authority. That is why we run Heaven. Nova's head was already reeling from hearing about the unfortunate situation between Adam and Eve, but to add all the extra this or that in between was a bit overwhelming if she was to be honest. Not to mention Father being gone for how long?
He's been gone then for a while now, I guess.
Since Eden, yes. It's been a few millennia, at least for me, though we aren't exactly sure the moment he actually disappeared, not to mention none of your kind has ever been dropped at our doorstep. Sera ran her fingers through her hair, her wings flapping softly behind her. We thought the mythics were wiped out when Eden fell to ruins, but here you are, defying everything we believed.
I see.
Everyone grew quiet.
Both Lilith and Eve are in...
Emily began, but Nova held her hand up.
Please, don't finish that sentence. I can't. I don't want to hear any more of it right now.
Nova had had enough, and her sanity was at its wit's end. She wasn't trying to be rude, but she was a sentence away from a full-on mental breakdown.
How is Adam?
Nova responded. He is coping, if you want to call it that. Sera looked to Emily for a chime in to the end of the conversation. Nova could only assume that, and everything was far more complicated than she could understand at the moment. Betrayal by the two people who were made to love and cherish you most had to leave a wound that no one could fathom. Nova couldn't imagine the pain Adam had suffered after the garden, and after his so-called wives. Emily, why don't you get Nova settled? We can discuss all of this further later. You should rest.
All right.
Nova didn't have much room to argue. Yes, she had so many questions, but she had a feeling Emily and Sera were no longer going to budge on anything but resting. Peter bowed his head and waved, heading back to probably help new souls like her enter through the gates, and at least they were probably in the books. Nova sighed a little, her foxtail swaying behind her as Emily stopped in front of a lilac door with beautiful engravings on it.
This is your room, Nova. If you need anything, and I mean anything at all, even if it's just to show you around heaven, please do let me know. I love giving tours.
Emily squealed and giggled.
Will do.
Nova mumbled before Emily closed the doors behind her. The room was filled with soft purples, whites, and blues. It was lavish. Not that Nova had ever slept in a bed. She suddenly missed that old tree in Eden she used to sleep under in her fox form. Nova also missed the river and the soft water sounds. That and her kin being gone, and her possibly being the last mythic weighed on her heart heavily. Why had she been the only one to arrive here? Nothing made much sense, and the more questions she had, the less answers it felt like she would get. Nova whimpered as she sat on the edge of the bed, missing everything she felt she had taken for granted back then. The bed was soft, unlike anything she'd ever felt in her life, but she hardly could enjoy it. Nova rose to her feet, determined to find the one person who she could not only relate to, but get answers from.
I need to meet with Adam,
Nova acknowledged. Her sandy fox ears perked up, her icy blue eyes prepared to search for Adam until she collapsed.